If we wanted to do something more in depth in one of our resolvers, like query a data source, so in this case, if you wanted to query a REST API that was public, or it or your own REST API for that matter, or your DynamoDB table, or any data source really, we can do that with GraphQL. So just for an example, here's a dummy API. So I'm just going to click on this, and this is going to return all the employees in the dummy API. So what I've done is, first thing I wanted to do was copy this URL and put it into Postman, which I did that here. And so I do that, and I get back the same data. And I was using the code feature. However, even though this is a pretty good code snippet, I started off with this one. However, this doesn't work in all cases because this JavaScript is going to execute asynchronously. So the function I was calling was returning before this function finished. So I had to use the fetch library, and I'll show you what that looks like. So in order to query that API, I had to make a few things. So I defined a new query called getEmployees, and this returns a list of employee object. And it's a list because it's inside of brackets. And the employee object has the same data that's returned in the REST API. So if we go back and look at this, you can see there's an ID, salary, age, so on. So in my resolver, what I did was I defined getEmployees, used the same arguments as before, and so this maps to a function, and what this function is doing is using the fetch library, which I imported up here, and using promise objects in this library is really easy. It's just, as far as I can tell, made for querying URLs, doing get, post, whatever. So I'm getting the response, I'm putting it into a JSON object, I'm getting that JSON object, and I'm just returning it. I could probably just return it here as well. I was following an example on Stack Overflow, so I was just copy and pasting a few things, and I got this working, and I thought this is probably pretty good. So from there, I'm assigning the value of whatever's returned from this promise object to this variable called response, and I'm returning response. And then when I query this, and I query getEmployees with these values, I'm returned all of the data that was also in our REST API. And so that's how you can make a more in-depth resolver. So you can also do other things here, like if you had a MySQL table, DynamoDB table, any type of data source, and you have some existing logic already about how to connect to that with Node.js or Java or any of the supported languages for GraphQL, you can do that inside your resolver. And the whole point of GraphQL is that this framework adheres to many different data types. So you can put a combination of stuff, like you can do a combination of reading data from a database, querying other REST APIs. You can combine data sets in here really easily. You can query multiple things. At least I think you can. Name, address. Alright, so I have my employees, and then probably at the bottom here I probably have my name. Yep. So you can just do one HTTP request with these queries, and it returns that same data. So that's the advantage of GraphQL, is just less traffic that you have to manage. It's all kind of obfuscated for you, and you just define a framework, and you can do one HTTP request, you get back all the data you want, and you can manipulate your front end as you please. I saved this already. When you save this in this Launchpad tool, you also get this URL, because I think a lot of confusion with GraphQL was like, okay, well, this is great, but how do I use it in my program? If I can highlight this, I can show you in Postman how to call it. So we're gonna put our same URL here, and we're gonna do a post, and inside of our body we're gonna we're gonna have our same queries. So we're gonna put that here, and it's just gonna be JSON object. Get rid of this. Or I guess it wouldn't be purely JSON, but let's just do it as text. So we're going to go ahead and do a post there, and that should bring back the same data if I did it right. Okay, so maybe I didn't do it right. So let's cheat a little bit, and let's look at the inspector. Let's look at network, and then we're just going to click query. And so here's our 204, and then in our headers that we're sending over, so it's doing an options request. We don't want to look at that. So here's our post. Here's the URL. Where is its body? Oh, yeah, here's a request payload. So let's look at this. So it has a... Okay, alright, I get it. So it has a JavaScript object that is has a couple of fields. Operation name is null. Query is our query, and variables use null. So that's what we have to put in here. Let's just do that now. And so we can go back here. Operation name is null. Or maps and null. And then our query. And I just try to copy and paste values there. Oh, that didn't work. Yeah, that's what I want. I want to copy this. Yeah, that's what I want. Alright, cool. Now it has all the break lines and stuff in there. Does this work? Alright, so this works. So this is what you'd want to do. I believe it's always going to do a post. Let's do a get and just see what that does. I can't send a body and a get, so that's not going to work. So the Apollo server only supports get or post requests. So what happens if you do a get on this? The get query is missing. So I'm assuming there must be some type of query string it's expecting then. So that answers that question. You only do a get or you do a post on it. I'm not sure what a get's used for, but it must be for like the schema that's there already. Okay, so I think I've run over a lot of stuff here. Let me know in the comments if there's like questions or let me look at something else. Thanks for watching.